Okay, hi, my name is Molly, and today's talk that I already skipped past is learn to read Java in under an hour. Not going to promise that you're going to know how to write it, but the goal of this is for you to be able to look at Java code if you're learning, or if you work with Java coders, or if you just want to because you don't have anything else to do that day, and have a general idea of what it intends to do and how it intends to do it. And so you can ask better questions about the details, because there's a dearth of knowledge on the internet about Java, and if you can format your question correctly, it makes learning it a lot easier. So my name's Molly. Twitter handle is MollyATX. I also have a blog. I have business cards with this stuff on them if you're really interested. My Java training has mainly been through the Delta program. This is Adam Schwemm, my mentor. He's not a woman, but that's not his fault. He's not I asked him to come kind of for moral support and to ask questions that are, a little bit above my level. You may have seen the Delta program also has a perk on the Women Who Code meetup page. I wrote too small, I'm not used to being in front of classrooms anymore, but there's a Women Who Code ATX coupon code that it's a full online course to become an Android developer from scratch. So from setting up Android Studio on your computer, which you really do need help with because it's hard, all the way through to technical interviews and looking for a job. There's, I don't know, probably close to 100 videos now, with at least another 20 to 50 on the near future roadmap. The regular price for the course is like $300, but with the Women Who Code, you get it for $97, which is pretty sweet deal. And the nice thing about the online course is you do it, at your own pace. So, because they did do a boot camp before that I had been looking into, but at your own pace, you get to actually keep your job, and so it's a lot less stressful. And I'm a nerd, so I wrote the line of this is an idea of what some Java code looks like. So we'll get into that. Okay, so Java is a programming language. I forgot to mention a couple of things. Sorry. I also, just a little background on me, I've been wanting to make Android apps for a few years now, but I actually finally started learning and really buckling down to do it around November. I am on just the bleeding edge of so close to publishing my first app on the Play Store. I'm just waiting for a couple things from my designer, and I had to fix my toaster. And I'm also doing an apprenticeship with Adam Schwemm, where I'm working on another one that we're also going to put on the Play Store. And then hopefully eventually someone will pay me to do this, and that will be great. Okay, moving on. So, Java as a programming language. There are a few things that kind of differentiate it, make it, special, make it good enough that they chose it to be the main language for Android programming, and lots of other stuff. So it's object-oriented. Lots of languages that you might be familiar with are object-oriented: C#, C++, Python, Pascal, Ruby, lots of stuff. Object-oriented programming creates modular, reusable pieces of code where you have classes and you create objects of classes, and within the class you have attributes that define your data and the state, and then you have methods that is your code. It is the behavior, it's what it does. A little bit more on that in a minute. It's a statically typed language, which C and C++ are also statically typed. I think Ruby and Python are dynamically typed languages. You can initialize variables without assigning them a value. So when you initialize a variable, you have to declare a data type. It's an integer, it's a string, it's a character, it's an object. You have to say what it is, which can sometimes look like a little more work on the front end if you're just kind of looking at the code. But the nice thing is then if I know I have a variable that I called x and it's an int, I know everything I need to know about what x can do, what x can't do, where I can put x. So it actually makes things a lot easier because you don't, if you're gonna have an error with your type, it's gonna be a compile time error and not a runtime error. So you're not gonna be in the middle of your program and suddenly everything breaks and you have to go through line by line and figure out, oh, I somehow randomly in here decided x became a string and then I broke everything. There are, because I should have really reversed these two, Java's a really mature platform. There's tons of documentation around it and there's lots of built-in libraries. So there's lots of code that people have written for you already that you can use and expand upon and make new, better things without having to reinvent the wheel every time. And because it's object-oriented and it's modular, you can kind of plug and play classes where you need to. Okay, so let's look at a piece of Java code. So this is the project that I'm working on right now. This is some code that I wrote. And so this is a Java file. So typically, each class is going to be contained in its own file. And this is your class. So the beginning of your file will have the package, which is basically like, where does this exist and what else kind of exists with it. It's like the file directory for something that's just stored on your computer. And you'll have some import statements that's just saying like, hey, use these pieces of stuff that you already know how to get because they're built in. And then there's your class. Your class is going to have the same name as your file by convention, but also a lot of development environments will either really strongly suggest that you give it the same name or just not let you get a different name because then it just makes everybody's lives a lot harder. So your class is like a blueprint for your objects. Inside the class, you have attributes and you have methods. There's a lot of different analogies for this because this is one of the most basic components of Java programming. For me, I like to think of it as your attributes are like your nouns and adjectives, and your methods are your verbs. So your attributes describe, what it is, what it has, what it looks like. Your methods are what does it do. So if I had a class to describe person, attributes might be name, height, hair color, things like that. And then methods would be stuff I can do. I can run, I can eat, I can sleep, all kinds of stuff like that. Any questions so far? Okay, by the way, feel free to jump in at any point with questions. I'm a little foggy because I'm a little under the weather, so if I don't make sense, just tell me. Okay, so when you're looking at Java code, there's a lot of kind of grammatical conventions and rules that will really help you when you're trying to figure out what is going on here. So there's a few different kinds of case. These are conventions, but they're pretty widely adhered to. So you can use, if you're looking at a variable, you can use what case it's written in, or if you're looking at a piece of code, you can use what case the different words are written in to determine what they are. So Pascal case is where the first letter of every word is capitalized. That you're going to find in your file names and your class names. So we'll get a little bit more into this in a minute, but objects, which are instances of classes, can be your variables. So your class name is then your data type. You have to have a data type because it's statically typed. So I would have, if I wanted to create a new person, it would be person, new. person. And so I know from looking at this line that, okay, this starts with a capital letter, so that's going to be a class name, and since it's not the first line of a class where it says class name, then I know, okay, this is referencing a data type. This one then is camel case. The first letter is going to be lowercase, but all subsequent words, the first letter will be capitalized. So it might be like person one. So I know this is a variable, so I go, okay, data type of person, and then I'm creating an instance of person, and the name of that variable, that instance of person, is person one. Cool. Okay, so camel case is also used in method calls, method signatures. Methods, like I said, are your verbs. They're what your variables can do. So, for instance, on person one, I might call the method eat and tell them to eat a hamburger. So variable, this is another sentence structure, I guess, that you will see a lot in Java coding. You're going to see a variable and then the dot. And the dot says, okay, now I'm going to be calling a method, or in some cases, an attribute of this object. So everything in person is going to have a method called eat, and it's going to be able to be passed in food, for instance, a hamburger. And then this might return void, it might do nothing. It might return a giant belch, whatever you wrote your eat code to do for your person class. The third one that you'll see is snake case, which everything's lowercase, and then instead of spaces between words, you have underscore. You don't see this one quite as often, but where I've come across it is in static variables, like variables that are just kind of built in and not actually acted on, but they might be like constants. And also in XML, which isn't really Java, but if you're doing Android programming, it's how you program the interfaces, the look and feel, the design of it. All right, so these are the symbols that we find when coding in Java. Curly braces are the first really important one. That's how you know you're looking at a block of code. So I see like class person at the top of a file, and then I'm going to see an open curly brace, and everything between that and the matching closed curly brace is part of this class. Similarly with the methods, we'll go over method signatures in a second, and at the end of the method signature, there's going to be a curly brace, and you know that everything between that and the corresponding closing curly brace is part of that method. And by being able to identify these quickly and break the code into manageable chunks, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to get sort of the overarching idea of what the code does, and then be able to look at it on a smaller scale and see line by line what's happening. Semicolon signifies the end of a line. By convention, Java code is written, pretty much one statement per line, but somebody could, if they wanted to, just be awful, write just this huge, huge long line that just had semicolons randomly interspersed in it. I would not want to be the person who had to look at that code, but understanding that semicolon means the end of a statement means that you could look at it and turn it into readable code, probably by just putting in a return yourself. Parentheses. So parentheses are parameters for when a method is defined, and then you also use them when you call a method. So right here, I called the person creator method, which didn't take anything in, that's open parentheses. Right here, when I called eat, then in these parentheses is the parameter, what the method needs to take in this case, food. Brackets, square brackets, are used for objects in arrays and for declaring arrays. So for in this case, in this instance, int 4, that's going to be an integer array of size 4, and then I can, if I want to, get the fourth one, I can, whatever that int array is called, if it's just called, my array, I can use my array bracket 3 to get whatever integer is in position 3 on my array. Getting crowded up there. Okay, and then the last part is your operators. Most of you have seen these before. I don't know how uniformly they're used from language to language. So let's just go through. So you've got your equal sign. When you see just one equal sign, that is assignment. So that's saying, okay, I have this variable, and to that variable, I'm going to assign whatever's on the right-hand side of that equal sign. If you see 2 equal signs in a row, that's going to be logic to check, are these 2 things equal? See here, and then the ampersand, or sometimes people just call it bang, is used for not. So you might see it before a Boolean to turn it from true to false or false to true, or you can see it with an equal sign, and then that's does not equal. Ampersand, what you're going to see today is just, oh man, I can't believe I drew that right. 2 of them together, and that's another logic test that's, not logic test, sorry, that's saying, like you're looking at logic of if statement 1 is true and statement 2 is true. So this just means and. So it tests whether the arguments on both sides of it are true. And then you've got plus and minus, which if you're just working with numbers, it's just like math, add and subtract. You can also, there's shortcuts written in, so that if you did like int I equals 4, I plus plus, that would automatically just add 1 to I. You see that a lot in loops, where you want to go through, like if you have a big array of stuff and you want to go through one at a time, end of the loop, increment to the next one, go back through.
Can you say that last part again? The whole plus plus. So you said int I is 4, and then you put I plus plus.
Yeah. So I plus plus means the same thing as I equals I plus 1. It's just incrementing it by 1. You can also decrement with the minus sign. So I minus minus, same with I is equal to I minus 1.
Is it like other languages where the plus sign also concatenates as well with strings, or?
Yes. Okay. There's also concatenate methods you can call, but yeah, sometimes like if you've just got 2 things and it's fine, it's easier to just throw the plus sign. I tried to do it with an ampersand the other day because I had been working with a lot of formulas in Excel, and I got confused. I broke everything for a minute. It was really scary. I break things a lot though, so I kind of get used to it after a while. Okay, so I probably did this all in the wrong order, by the way. All right, so this is Java method call. So, not method call, sorry, method signature. Words are hard. So this is what you're going to see in a class when that class's methods are defined. So when I'm defining the actions that objects of that class can take. It starts with an accessibility keyword. Public, private, protected. Yeah. Those are your accessibility keywords. Those say what other blocks of code can use this. So for the most part, you're probably going to see public because we want code that works with other code. But you might see private if it's a method that we only want this objects of this class to be able to run on themselves. See, for instance, off the top of my head, like if you had a method in your person class called scratch butt, you might want that to be private. You might not want anybody else to be able to scratch your butt, but you might want to be able to scratch your own butt if it itches. Sorry, my brain's kind of. Okay, after that is return type. Your return type is going to be a data type. So you've got, your basic primitive data types, integers, characters, booleans, true, false. There's a few other number ones, long, double, float, and then you're going to have void is another one, which basically says just do all this stuff, but don't actually give me anything. And then you could have any class name as your data type, what you're going to get back. Your method name is the name of your method, so it's the word you're going to use when you call it. Like you see here, that's in camel case. And then inside your parentheses, you have the parameters. So some methods don't need any parameters. You can just call that method and it just knows what to do. Other times, like for instance with my eat method here, I can tell somebody to eat, but if I don't give them any food, they're gonna go, I don't know what you want. So if you have to pass something in, when you define your method, you define what you want to be given when that method is called. And then usually inside the curly braces here, where you have your method code, you're going to run some functions on whatever that is that's brought in. And if your return type is not void, use it to define whatever it is that you're going to get back. You're all like, I don't know, maybe it's cool, maybe I'm going to be super confused in a minute. That's okay. All right, so let's just go ahead and look at some code and see if I have explained this well at all. Okay. Oh, right, wrong window. Let's try this again. Hello. The resolution is really different on this one. Let's see if it works. Cool. Okay, so this is that code that was there before that I wrote. I'm going to turn this way. Okay. So here is my class. You can see it starts with public, so it's going to be accessible in other files, not just within itself. Class, and then you see slide adapter. Can everybody read this, by the way, or do you want me to zoom in on it? Should I zoom in a little bit?
Zooming would be good.
Sorry. All right. Oh yeah. How's that? A little better? Okay. So Pascal case, name of our class. Right here we have our attributes. These are all private because I wanted them to be. It's usually better to have private attributes within your class and then use methods to change them, because if you make them public, then you can't really control what's going to be in any one of these variables at any given time, and you can sometimes run into runtime errors if other chunks of code start randomly changing your person's name and then suddenly she doesn't respond when people call her by her name. And so here, and this is really awesome because it highlights everything in different colors based on what it actually is. So you can see these blue right here, these are all the data types. So int is lowercase because it's a primitive. It's just kind of like basic building blocks of this is going to be built into everything you have. But you can see all of these other ones are in Pascal case. So these are all data types that are defined in classes. So these are all objects of classes right here. And then here we've got, on line 28, we've got our first method signature. Actually, I'm going to skip that one and go to the next one because that one is a special case. So, all right, line 36. All right, so can anybody tell me what the return type is for this method? What am I going to get back? Yes, exactly. So it's private, so I can only call it from within the class, and it's going to give me a string. What's the method name? Yes. So when I call dot slide time. What is how many parameters does it have? One. I neglected to go over this. So when you are defining parameters in method signature, so you have to define the data type that you're given and give it a name so that it can be referenced within the code of that method. Then if you have multiple parameters, you just put a comma between them. Other name. So the lack of commas and the fact that there's only 2 words here let us know that there is one parameter. It is of data type note slide, and we're going to call it slide while it's here. Some people get hung up on defining variable names in parameters for methods. And my weird way of just working around it is I think of like, if you meet like a crazy old lady and you're like, hi, my name's Molly, and she's like, I'm gonna call you June. You're like, you know what, while you're here, while you're in this method, whatever this note slide is called in the rest of the world, I'm just gonna call you slide right now because I know how to spell slide and I have control over that. It's been a long day, guys. Okay, so let's go here. First of all, what line is the method signature on? Right here. Yep, line 50. Okay, what is the return type? View. So I'm gonna get back a view, which I may or may not actually know what that is, but probably is something I'm gonna see. Method is called getView, and it has how many parameters? 3. Cool. So it gets an integer, it gets a view, and it gets a view group. And it does a bunch of stuff with all of those, and then when it's done, I get a view. This specifically is I have a list of things that it says, okay, you're in X position in the list, put this in that row. So that's kind of the overview. I know that was quick and dirty and probably a little bit more confusing than it needed to be. But now you can take a look at a class that's written by anyone else and be able to see what does it have and what can it do and what does it need you to give it in order to do those things, what's going to give you back. So you can see in here, I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit more. So here inside this getView method, you can see where I have some method calls. So there's a data type of layout inflator, and I can call a method from where I pass in context. Let's see here. There is, and this, I created an object of this class layout inflator. I called it inflator. And then down here on line 56, I call a method that inflator has access to. So it's in the layout inflator class called inflate. And it takes in a layout ID, which I defined earlier as an int, a view group, and a Boolean. And it's going to give me back a view, row view. Questions, concerns?
When it comes to your objects, I get a little confused when it comes to the data types, because I'm used to seeing data types as integers or strings. When it comes to the objects, are these something that are predefined in your extending file, or is it something that you're defining within your own class or within your own yeah, I guess your class within this one right here, or is it something?
So that's a good question. So yeah, anything basically that's not a primitive data type, integer, character, etc., is going to be an object. Every class that you write in Java is going to extend from object. And depending on whether it's somewhere in my import statements or if it's defined inside the package I'm working in or even the class I'm working in, is going to tell me what I can call. So for instance, down here, so layout inflator, I think, yeah, is actually a class that I imported. So I'm able to then make objects of that class and call on them. Note slide is a different class that is within the package that I'm working in, so it's in the same folder structure. Text view is another one that I imported. So they can be from any of those places, and all of them, or none of them. I mean, I have to be from one of them, but yeah. So would you guys like to see what some code does? That's more interesting.
But I have a total, complete new question, by the way.
Yay! I like those because I might know how to answer them.
Life, so it's my first time ever doing this, in a classroom setting. Do y'all make up your own colorations or what?
This is it's a great question. No, I wondered that in the beginning too. No, this is a program called Sublime Text. It actually has a built-in, you can say they call it the syntax that I'm using. You can say, oh, everything in here is Java, and it has built-in color schemes. If it knows it's reading Java because it knows all of these rules and all of this grammar, it can put in a lot of these colors for you, make your life a lot easier.
Sublime Text. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a free program.
Or is it just for writing the code?
This is really just for viewing code. I use Android Studio as my preferred IDE. Eclipse is another big Java one, and BlueJ if you're making non-Android stuff. I don't think you can do Android stuff in BlueJ, but I know I've used it for classes that I took before.
So take-home message, those kinds of things exist.
I'm sorry?
Take-home messages that exists.
Yeah, exactly. It's if you're reviewing code, if you're not necessarily needing to run it, Sublime Text is really good for that. Okay, so let me. So my first project, and the reason I decided I wanted to do Android programming, because I just really like Android phones. I was one of those, I only have a MacBook because I kind of absolutely have to do this, which I find really ironic that I have to have a MacBook to write Android apps. But anyway, it's so expensive. But I really, I like the modularity of it, the root capabilities, all the fun stuff you can do. It also makes actually programming and designing for them a lot harder because there are so many different screen sizes, and so I can start to see the benefits to iPhones, but I still don't have one. So I have been playing roller derby for 4.5 years now. And my derby league, TXRD, is a bank track league in town. Super great. We have a game this Saturday. You should totally come. But I've been running our social media pretty much since I started. But I thought, man, wouldn't it be friggin' cool if we had an app and you can just if you're at the game, you can pull up on your phone and see oh, this is the roster of people who are playing and this is how the game is played, and I can buy tickets and merch and all kinds of stuff. So it's we don't have DIY in roller derby. We have YDI. You do it. That's a great idea. You do it. So I did it. And so this is almost ready to come out. This is TXRD, the app. By the way, also if you're looking to get into programming for mobile devices, Genymotion is a great program. You can do emulators, and it's so much better than the built-in virtual devices that you can do in Eclipse and Android Studio. It's a bajillion times faster.
Spell that.
GENY Motion.
Where am I missing?
Very top.
No, top. Sorry, top.
Okay, so this is the main screen. So I have defined code for everything on this screen does. So there's code that says when they click this, pop this down. There's code that says when they click contact us, oh crap, send an email, but if it's getting a motion device, then it's not set up. In the tickets view, I then open up a new activity. I have something called a web view, which just puts the internet within your app, so you don't have to open up, a Chrome or a different Explorer. And so this is the website online where you can buy our tickets. I have code that says when you click go back to the main page. There are rules, and it says if you click on this box where it says penalties, load the penalties info in here. Click where it says gameplay, load the gameplay info in here. A really cool piece of code that I found online and kind of tweaked to my needs is, if you'll notice when I click, it turns pink. Not my choice, it's just the branding that's on our website. But there's a listener, which is one of the really cool kind of built-in classes and methods that you can use when you're programming Java for Android, that says like it's always on and it's always just like waiting for you to touch something. When you touch something, it says, hey, she touched something. And so when it fires the hey, she touched something, I said, okay, turn that thing pink. And so that pops up just an image of our schedule, which is what I'm waiting on the designer for a new one of. Don't break. Okay. And the really cool part that might be going kind of slow today because I just uploaded everything is you can now look at our team rosters, and that's my team because we're the prettiest team. And that was like the code we were looking at before. For each row, it pops up, it gets a view, which is that row that has their name, it has their number, it has their position, and it has a little headshot of them. And so this is what you can do in a few short months if you spend all of your free time programming and half of your money. Yes, but you can spend a lot less of your money if you sign up for the online Udemy course with Women Who Code ATX coupon.
I have a question. Why is it that you need a Mac to do Android development?
It's just kind of you answer it. You're the one who told me I had to.
It's not that you have to. You can use any environment. You can use Linux. You can use Windows. But the Mac makes it so that you can easily go from kind of a beginner to advanced and switch between them. Whereas like in Windows, if you actually want to write like Unix style code and all that, you have to kind of emulate it, and it's a lot of overhead. So it's just kind of the developer tool of choice because it's Unix and then the pretty UI. But you don't have to. It's just a lot more overhead.
So is there a specific IDE that is useful in the Mac? Is that
No, Android Studio is actually for both Windows and Mac. But if you want to start, let's say you were building something and you had a problem. Something was like, oh, I need to actually run a debugger to kind of take a look at this phone or whatnot. In Windows, you're going to have to create a new environment or use new specific tools, whereas in a Mac, you can just go to the terminal and just start typing commands directly from reading stuff on the website. So it's just the Mac OS operating system is more geared towards, I think, development in general, because it has that ability to be like, oh, it's pretty and easy, oh, I can get really advanced, whereas, Linux is like, a lot of overhead to learn if you want to do that kind of environment, and Windows has a lot of things that are kind of faking it all the time. So.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, I first tried. I was like, well, I'm just gonna put Linux on this super cheap computer and make that work. And then it turned out that you actually need to spend time and energy to learn how to use Linux if you've never done it before. I didn't have any more of that. I was tapped out, so it's okay. I knew a girl. I got a good discount. Any other questions about learning programming, Android, what it can do, what I don't know? My dog Boomer, he's super cute.
What's your next project?
So the project that we're working on, that was the code that we were looking at, is going to be an app where you can define a talk. I wanted to do it for today, but took a 3-hour nap instead. that so if you're giving a speech and you have to do it in a certain amount of time, and so okay, like at the 5-minute mark I need to talk about this, and at the 8-minute mark I need to talk about this, you can define different slides and the amount of time that each one shows and what order it goes in. So then when you hit play, you can just kind of have your phone off to the side, and when you need to switch topics, it'll flash up that new word and you'll be like, oh yeah, and by the way, and now we're going to talk about this thing. So that's the next project.
I had a question about back to the code stuff. I was wondering, when would you want to import a class, and when would you want to extend from one?
Yes, advanced topics. So if you're importing a class, you just want to be able to create objects of that class and call methods on them. If you are extending from a class, then you are making like a subtype. So if I had a class that was car, I could then define my own class called truck that extended from car, had extra things it could do on top of car. So extending from is when you want to define your own stuff that is built sort of on top of that platform. There's also functionality in Java called implementation, where you can implement what's called an interface. An interface is like a contract. So if I say I'm going to implement this interface, then I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to have these methods. And the method signatures will be in the interface, but they won't have any block of code within them. It just says, look, I don't care how you do it, but have a method that takes in this parameter and gives back this data type. And that's really useful for when you have code that talks to each other. So stuff has to, like implement, if you want something that's gonna it's gonna have its own defined methods that it calls when you touch and when you release touch, then you wanna say, okay, I'm going to implement this touch interface. So I'm gonna promise that I have all the methods that are necessary for something that uses a touch interface. Did I die? I died. Come back. There you are. Pretty team.
What kind of support comes with the go at your own pace course?
Well, for the Udemy course here specifically, I'm here, so that's pretty great. Also, they're based here in town. They actually have a meetup group that they run called the Austin Learn to Code Study Group, and that's this is largely taken and horribly rearranged from their How to Read Java talk, and so there's there's the built-in support on Udemy where you can post discussion questions and they get answered, and you're gonna have lifetime access to whatever updates and extra training gets uploaded in the future. But then also as a benefit of being a Women Who Code and being here in Austin, it's a lot easier to get in touch with people who know stuff.
Excellent. What resources would you recommend, just because I'm looking at the one you just mentioned, just the emulator for Android and everything, just to get into mobile native app stuff? Because right now I only know it's responsive and like a little browser-based thing, but to actually get started on mobile native.
I think Android Studio is a really good IDE if you're working on Android. I honestly can't make any recommendations for iPhone. Genymotion is another, it's really great emulators. You can really quickly and easily see how your app's going to look on all different sizes of devices. And you can test things like, is it going to work if I don't have an internet connection? Which mine doesn't. And what's going to happen if a call comes in or if a text comes in when I'm in the middle of this app? Is everything going to break, or is it going to, know when to save stuff? Those are really good. I think those are kind of the main things. And then once you can kind of phrase your questions, in a little bit tighter than just like, what is this? Stack Overflow is a great resource for like I've found a lot of stuff on there. That's where I found the little thing that highlights everything in pink when you touch it. And if you sign up for the Udemy course, the whole like first section shows you like how to set up everything on your computer so it looks right, and so it's got that nice like black background and funky colors, so you can stare at it for 8 hours without your eyes burning out, which is really good.
So this app is not out yet?
Yet, not yet, but it will be soon, and I'm sure I will spam all of you via email as soon as it's out, because I'm really excited about it and have dedicated a horrifying amount of hours to it.
What was that thing you were talking about at the beginning, discount for the Android class?
Yes, so it's up on the Women Who Code meetup page. I also, the QR code on the back of my business cards, because I am that cool, takes you to the course, and I wrote down the coupon code. That takes the Udemy course that, which is run by these guys who taught me everything I know, and so it's everything they've taught me plus like 8 other weeks of program. And it takes it, the coupon code takes it from $297 down to $97. So if you're interested in learning Java and or Android programming, cannot recommend it.
So it teaches
Java and
I mean,
Android programming.
I kind of already know how to program, but I'm just curious. It takes you from the beginning, like you know how to code?
Yeah, it is from scratch, from the ground up, and it takes you even all the way through how to interview for technical jobs.
I don't have Oh, I got it Udemy, right? I just go to Udemy and.
Yeah, and it's, if you just go to the if you just scan the QR code, that takes you right to the class page. And then if you you can also go to deltaprogram.us. That's their like company, and they have links to the course on their website as well. Thanks for your time, everybody.